King Manuel I of Portugal was married 3 times. This doesn't sound quite remarkable compared to his contemporaries, Henry VIII with 6 wives and Ivan the Terrible with 8. But Manuel is special in a remarkable way. 2 of his wives were sisters, and the other was his niece. His first 2 wives weren't Habsburgs, but they were related to the famously inbred royal house through their niece, Manuel's 3rd wife, a Habsburg through her father. Here are the stories of Isabel of Aragon, her sister Maria of Aragon, and their niece, Eleanor of Austria. Isabel of Aragon was born on October 2nd, 1470, in Castile, as the eldest child of Isabella I of Castile and Fernando II of Aragon. Isabel was born when neither of her parents were monarchs, and when her mother was fighting for her right to the throne of Castile. She had married Fernando, then the son of the King of Aragon, in secret, so that she could have some support from Aragon to make her brother name her his heir. At the time of Isabel's birth, Spain wasn't a unified country, though it was her family who would be the ones to make it into the Spain we know today. The Iberian Peninsula consisted of 5 kingdoms: Castile, Leon, Aragon, Navarre, and Portugal. Isabel's mother would go on to rule Castile and Leon, while her father would rule Aragon. Her sister Juana would inherit all 3 kingdoms, pretty much making Spain into what we know it as today. While her parents were off fighting, Isabel was left in the city of Segovia. While Isabella and Fernando were gone, there was an uprising, and the young Isabel was captured. When her parents returned, the princess was finally freed. Her parents negotiated a treaty with the Portuguese, whom they were fighting, and one of their terms was that Isabel would be married to the son of the King of Portugal, Afonso. Isabel spent her early years following her parents around as they campaigned in southern Spain and became rulers of their kingdoms. She married Prince Afonso in 1490 when she would have been 20 years old. It was a political marriage at first, but it soon turned into a love match. She and Afonso were very fond of each other, but the Portuguese also loved their future queen, and she loved them and their country just as much. Afonso was killed in a riding accident just a year later, bringing Isabel's happy life to an unexpected end. Isabel, a very religious woman, fasted excessively while mourning her husband. Isabel didn't think marrying again would be such a great idea, since she could never be as happy as she was with Afonso, so when his younger brother, Manuel, proposed marriage, her parents left the decision up to her. They asked if he'd rather marry her sister, Maria, but he continued to ask for Isabel's hand. Eventually, she agreed, but on the condition that all Jews who refused to convert to Christianity would be expelled from his kingdom. Manuel agreed. The couple married in 1497, making Isabel the Queen of Portugal. It was during her tenure that the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama discovered a maritime route to India. Many other discoveries also happened during Manuel's reign. Isabel's only brother died around this time, leaving a pregnant wife. It was hoped that his wife would give birth to a son so the crown would not go to one of Isabel's daughters. His wife gave birth to a stillborn daughter, which meant that Isabel was now the heir to her parents' kingdoms, and she was named Princess of Asturias, the title given to the heir of Castile. Isabel was pregnant at the time and gave birth to a son, Miguel. She died just days after the birth, possibly due to her constant fasting before and during her pregnancy, on August 23, 1498, at the age of 27. Prince Miguel was now the heir to all the Iberian kingdoms except Navarre. The hopes of the Iberian Peninsula being united so easily were dashed when Miguel died just before his 2nd birthday, leaving Juana the Mad, Isabel's next living sister, as the heir to her parents' kingdoms. 2 years later, Manuel married Isabel's sister, whom he had initially rejected. Maria of Aragon was born on June 29, 1482, in Cordoba. She was the 3rd surviving daughter of her parents and their 4th child. She also had a stillborn twin sibling. Maria was given an outstanding education, just like her many sisters and brother. She was expected to become a good queen consort someday, but was never expected to inherit her parents' kingdoms in her own right. She had a brother and 2 older sisters, so she was quite far back in the line of succession. Maria was known to be pale and thin, and very serious. Many grooms were considered for Maria. An alliance with a powerful kingdom like Fernando and Isabella's would help any European kingdom. One groom proposed for Maria was King James IV of Scotland. The idea was entertained around the time Catherine of Aragon's marriage to Arthur, Prince of Wales, was being negotiated. To learn more about that royal marriage, watch my video on Catherine of Aragon's bout of sweating sickness. The plan was for the sisters to mediate Scotland and England's constant conflict, but Maria never became Queen of Scotland. When Maria's sister, Isabel, died, Manuel needed another wife. He only had one newborn son, who died in infancy, so he needed another wife to bear him some more sons. Manuel had rejected Maria when he had asked for the hand of Isabel, but now Maria was the best choice, so they married in October of 1500. Maria and Manuel would have 10 children over their 17-year marriage, and Maria was almost constantly pregnant. Among their children were King John III, who would marry the sister of their father's next wife, Isabella, a Holy Roman Empress, Beatrice, a countess in her own right, and King Henry, dubbed the Cardinal King, who succeeded Manuel's great-grandson. During Maria's tenure, many new discoveries, including the discovery of Brazil, took place, as well as many reforms, but Maria didn't participate in politics, so she wasn't a very significant figure in the history of this period. She and her sisters were raised by their parents, known as the Catholic monarchs, to be very religious, so Maria did involve herself in the politics concerning religion as much as she could. Manuel respected her and took her advice when she gave it. Her 10 pregnancies left her exhausted, and her health was in tatters by her 10th delivery. She never truly recovered from that last pregnancy, and died on March 7, 1517, in Lisbon, aged 34. 2 of her sons and her grandson through her daughter Isabella became kings of Portugal. After the death of his second wife, King Manuel didn't skip a beat and immediately set about finding another relative of his dead wife to marry. All of Maria's sisters were already married or already dead, so Manuel would have to settle for one of her nieces. Eleanor of Austria was born on November 15, 1498. She was the first child of Philip, Duke of Burgundy, and Juana of Aragon, the sister-in-law of her future husband, King Manuel I, meaning that she was the niece by marriage of her future husband. It shouldn't surprise you to learn that Eleanor was a Habsburg, from the royal house famous for its inbreeding. Eleanor was named after her great-grandmother, Eleanor of Portugal, so she was also distantly related to her future husband, the King of Portugal. All 3 of Eleanor's sisters became queens: Isabella of Denmark, Mary of Hungary, and Katharina of Portugal. Katharina married Eleanor's stepson, who also happened to be their aunt, Maria of Aragon's son. Her 2 brothers both became Holy Roman Emperors. As the child of the King and Queen of Castile, Eleanor would have been a very attractive bride. She was considered as a first wife for King Henry VIII, but he chose her aunt Catherine instead. Marriages were considered for Eleanor even after her mother, Juana the Mad, was locked up for her alleged madness. Eleanor had different plans and may have had an affair with Frederick II, Elector Palatine. After this, marriage to John, the son of Manuel of Portugal and Eleanor's mother's sister, Maria, was considered. Manuel thought he might want to marry Eleanor himself, and so 20-year-old Eleanor was married to her uncle, who was nearly 50. Manuel and Eleanor had 2 children. Their son, Charles, died in infancy, but their daughter, Maria, who would later become a duchess in her own right and one of the wealthiest princesses in Europe, survived to adulthood. Manuel died after just 3 years of marriage at the age of 52, after catching the plague, leaving Eleanor a widow. She did not remain in Portugal and went to her brother's court in Spain. Once her brother and King Francis I of France made peace, it was agreed that Eleanor and Francis would marry. A marriage between the 2 was considered when they were children, but now the marriage actually went ahead. Francis was just 4 years older than her, and they were both in their 30s with their previous spouse dead when they married. Eleanor left Spain for her official entry into Bordeaux. She was crowned Queen of France in Saint-Denis in 1531, dressed completely in royal purple. Her new husband mostly ignored her, preferring the company of his mistress. She didn't have much political power, but she was still important to her husband, since she could keep peace between France and her brother's domains which surrounded it. She was present at peace negotiations between her husband and brother, and was very active in negotiating peace between her many ruling relatives in France. Eleanor didn't have any children with Francis, but she raised her stepdaughters, Madeleine and Margaret, herself. She also attended the wedding of Catherine de' Medici and her stepson, the future King Henri II. Francis died in 1547, leaving the throne to his son, Henri. Eleanor lived in Brussels and Spain, domains ruled by her family, and frequently visited her siblings. Eleanor died in 1558 while traveling from a meeting with her daughter at the age of 59. While King Manuel I wasn't a bad husband, the fact that he married 3 very closely related women makes him very interesting. All 3 of his wives were smart women who used their position as Queen of Portugal to get what they wanted. Isabel, Maria, and Eleanor should all be spoken of more.